Hello friends! Welcome or welcome back to Get Ready with America. Thank you all so much for all the support that you showed for the first video. I'm really excited by the response and how so many people that I know in the political space and not in the political space really enjoyed it and are looking forward to more. So thank you all so much. Please continue to like, subscribe, share, tell all your friends, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now is when we'll be getting into what the regular content is going to look like. Today we're starting off by talking about the special elections that are happening down in Louisiana. So on Saturday, March 20th, this upcoming Saturday, there's what is called an open primary. That means that anyone can run and anyone can vote regardless of party. Now, in an open primary, someone is able to win outright if they get 50% plus one of the vote. We'll talk a little more about that as we're talking about all of the districts, but if that doesn't happen, then the top two vote getters will go on to a general election for the special election that will be on Saturday, April 24th. Today we'll go through the details of each district, we'll talk about how to vote, and we'll also talk about how you can talk to your friends and family to make sure that they vote if they live in the district. And we're going to do this while doing a nice Mardi Gras themed eye look. Let's get into it. So I want to start off today's video with a correction. I misspoke in the last video about how all of the states except New Jersey and Virginia vote in even years. In fact, Louisiana, Kentucky, and Mississippi do vote for state legislatures in the odd year prior to the presidential election. So it's not every odd year, which is what New Jersey and Virginia do because they just, you know, want to vote all the time. But we'll talk about that when we get to New Jersey and Virginia. But I did want to share that before we get into this, before I lose all credibility with people, you know. Now, the first district we'll be talking about today is the 2nd Congressional District. This seat had been held by Cedric Richmond, who left the House of Representatives to join the Biden administration to serve as director of the White House Office of Public Engagement. He is the first glow-up from Congress that we will be talking about this year. There's a few other special elections that are coming up that we'll be talking about. Now, a fun fact for all of you true crime heads out there, is that the term, true crime? Anyway, this district was also previously represented by Hale Boggs from the 1940s to the early 1970s, and he was previously Speaker of the House toward the end of his tenure, and he disappeared in the Alaskan wilderness in 1972. And there's a really great podcast about it called Missing in Alaska that, if you haven't heard it yet, highly recommend. There's gangsters. There's congressional infighting. There is all kinds of insanity, and this is hashtag not sponsored, but highly recommend listening to that podcast. Now, the 2nd Congressional District covers nearly all of the city of New Orleans, and then it stretches west and north to Baton Rouge. On the ballot for this race, there are 8 Democrats, 4 Republicans, 1 Libertarian, and 2 unaffiliated candidates. I mentioned before the open primary. So what happens is literally every single person is put on one ballot, and everyone goes in and votes for the one person that they want, regardless of party. And from there, if one person gets the majority of the vote, which is 50% plus 1, then they just win outright. Otherwise, it will go to a runoff with 2 people, the top 2 vote getters. Now, in this case, notable in this race, there are 2 Democrats that are getting lots of endorsements and are also the 2 that are polling at the top in early polls. That's Troy Carter and Karen Carter-Peterson. They are basically splitting the endorsements from a lot of national and state party, or not party, I'm sorry, progressive organizations. And my guess is that it'll be those 2 in a runoff on April 24th, but we'll see. Some other notable, to me, candidates is that there are actually 2 postal workers that are on the ballot, one that's a Democrat and one that's a Republican. And then there's also perennial congressional candidate Belden Nooneyman Batiste. He is on the ballot every single time there is a race, and I don't know how well he usually does. I imagine that he has some sort of following, and you know what? Good luck to you, Nooneyman. I hope you do well. The next district that is having a special election is the 5th Congressional District. This election is to replace Luke Letlow, who was never actually sworn in. He actually died from complications from COVID on December 29th prior to being sworn in. So the seat was actually held by Ralph Abraham up until his retirement on June 3rd. He did not run for re-election after serving for 3 terms. Now, the district is rural northeastern Louisiana and much of central Louisiana, as well as this little part that also borders Mississippi. So it's basically all of the areas that border Mississippi, or as I like to refer to it, the tongue of the boot. In this race, 1 Democrat, 9 Republicans, and 2 unaffiliated candidates are on the ballot. This is now a 12-person race, so in the 2nd district it's a 15-person race. This is a 12-person race, so I anticipate that it is also going to go into a runoff. It's just, I mean, kind of, it's really hard to pull off an automatic win in that unless you have like a really good following. And so actually, interestingly enough, one of the candidates is Dr. Julia Letlow, who is the widow of Luke Letlow. She's a higher education administrator who is getting most of the major endorsements from folks, including from senators, from the state party. So, I mean, she could go on and win the whole thing outright on Saturday. But again, we'll see. I think most definitely it's safe to say she would be in a runoff if she does not win outright. The last district that is going to be voting on Saturday is the State House Representative District 82. Now, the seat was held by Charles Henry, who just abruptly resigned on January 11th, saying he wanted to take care of his family during COVID. Anyway, the 82nd district is one that is in Jefferson Parish. It's also always been very solidly Republican, so it is assumed that a Republican is going to take the seat. In the race on the 20th, there is 1 Democrat and 2 Republicans that are running. Now, part of Charles Henry's reason for wanting to get out at the beginning of the year is so that they could replace someone in time for the new session. The new session, or I guess the 2021 session for the Louisiana State House of Representatives starts on April 12th. So I think the assumption was that someone would just win this primary and there wouldn't be a runoff, because otherwise someone wouldn't be starting on the 12th at the beginning of the session. So it'll be interesting to find out if that is going to go to a runoff or there is someone that does win outright. I mean, with only 3, it is more, it's definitely more doable than with like the 15 and 12 that are in the other races. But again, I don't know like how many Democrats there are or like what kind of insurgents that is that would chip away from a majority. So it'll be very interesting to see if that does actually pan out as Henry had in mind. All right, and now for my favorite part, how we vote. I have to hand it to the Louisiana Secretary of State. Their website and all of their voter information, it is pretty great. I was able to answer most of my own questions that I had for this video just off of that website. So I highly recommend that if you do live in Louisiana or you have friends or family that live there that have any questions, just go to GauxVote.com. That's GAUXVOTE.com, of course. There's also an app, the Geaux Vote app, if you want to download it and check it out so that you just have the information on hand. But also, it seemed to me like the website itself was pretty accessible on mobile. It didn't seem that crazy on a desktop. So like very, very pleased with the website, and I hope that more states take heed and make sure that they update their websites and literally spell everything out for people. It is so, so helpful. Now, getting into the nitty-gritty, Louisiana does have vote by mail, but for excuse-only instances. Excuses include anyone who's over 65, if you're temporarily absent during the early voting period and election day, if you're working offshore, which is, you know, a big thing down in the Gulf in Louisiana, if you're away at school in another state, if you're in involuntary confinement, you're hospitalized, if you're an incarcerated non-felon, or if you're serving on a jury, amongst some other reasons, but those are some major ones. Now, I mentioned early voting. They do have an early voting period, and you do not need an excuse to go vote early. Unfortunately, I am getting this out after the early voting period has already ended. It generally runs starting the 14 days before election day and runs for a week minus Sunday, so that's about 7 total days of voting. If and when runoffs happen, that there will be an early voting period again, and people, I would highly encourage you to go vote early, because it's usually those 7 days and your early voting spot is open all day, and so you can go in and just get it done, which I'm such a huge proponent for. The other big thing in Louisiana that I loved and was really impressive to me is that they have online voter registration. One of the things that keeps people from allowing online voter registration is that they need a signature, which, I mean, makes sense. That's what goes into the voter rolls, and that's how, quote unquote, you prove your identity without an ID. Anyway, what Louisiana has done is they've actually synced up with the Motor Vehicle Commission, and you are able to identify yourself like through your driver's license online, and since they have a signature on file, that's how you are able to do your online voter registration. It is really awesome, and everyone should be working on that because it doesn't seem, you know, I say it doesn't seem that difficult, but if we've learned anything in COVID, everything, government administration in states, is difficult. But I digress. The deadline to register for the general special election, that is on April 4th. If you are going to do it through the MVC system, that is April 4th is that deadline. If you do need to send in a paper copy of the application with your physical signature on it, that is due March 25th. One thing that was missing on the website is the information about clemency and regaining voting rights for felons. Now, if you have completed probation and parole or have been out of prison for at least 5 years, you are qualified to regain your voting rights in the state of Louisiana. What you have to do is there's a special form, you have to get it signed by your parole or probation officer, and bring that to your local elections office, the registrar. Now, I could not find this form or the information on the Secretary of State's website, which honestly, that does not surprise me. So if that is your deal, I would highly suggest going to your parole or probation officer and inquiring with them, finding out how you can regain your right to vote, because it is your right. Please go for it. Again, gonna just tout GoVote.com has a ton of, it has, well, just about all of the information that you need, and they also have digital stickers. I voted stickers. It's, I love it. I love a good sticker. Yes. The last thing that we're going to talk about today is making sure that your friends and family go vote. Now, I told you about GoVote.com, told you about the app. I have links to both of those down in the description box, including a direct link on the GoVote.com website to the actual voter portal, where you put in your information to look up where you're supposed to go vote and what your sample ballot looks like. I've also included a link to a one-pager that the state put together with a helpful map showing all of the parishes that have an election happening on Saturday. There are a lot of places that are having some of their local elections as well. So a lot of places in Louisiana that are voting. Please, please, please share these resources with your friends and family who need them. Help them look up where they need to go and make a voting plan. As I said, you'll get information about your voting location. So what you're gonna do is then look at where it is and how that aligns with where they are and what they're doing that day, and look at the times that the polls are open and have them pick a specific time that they're gonna go to the polls and make sure that they go vote. All right, so just to recap, this Saturday, March 20th, is the open primary for the special elections for the 2nd Congressional District, the 5th Congressional District, and Representative District 82 for the State House of Representatives. If no one in those races gets to 50% plus 1 to win outright, there will then be a general election on Saturday, April 24th. Early voting for that will be April 10th through the 17th, minus Sunday, April 11th. I have links down in the description box to the Geaux Vote app, the voter portal, and also a link to the one-pager for more information for you and to give to any of your friends and family. Thanks so much for joining me here today. Come back in 2 weeks where there's a bunch of city races and special ledge races in 6 states, so who knows how long this is gonna be. Thanks so much, friends. I'll see you then.